Methodist Church in downtown Kinston, North Carolina. Welcome to the Wesley Bible class. And today we're going to be studying Judges 16, which should be familiar to most people who've ever gone through Sunday school, because this is the chapter about Samson that Sunday school teachers prefer, even though it's in some cases pretty gross. So let's get into it. Well, they usually leave out the first three verses, but anyway. Once Samson went to Gaza, where he saw a prostitute and went into her. That usually doesn't make it into your lesson, okay? The Gazites were told, Samson has come here, so they circled around and lay in wait for him all night at the city gate. They kept quiet all night, thinking, let us wait until the light of morning, then we will kill him. But Samson lay only until midnight, because I guess he was paying for the hour, but anyway. Then at midnight he rose up and took a hold of the doors of the city gates and the two posts, pulled them up, bars and all, and put them on his shoulder and carried them to the top of the hill that is in front of Hebron. So what he did was he took the gates of Gaza and hauled them off to the hill country, which was Israelite territory. So he stole a gate, you know. I guess he was a gatekeeper. Anyway. But this is a ha-ha kind of thing. At the same time, though, you see that he's still got this preference for ladies of the night, and especially the Philistines. Evidently, they had some real babes over there, and he's visiting the prostitute over in Gaza. And what do we see? The very same Gaza where, the Israelis have taken down the gates again. Yes, that same Gaza, right. I guess that's what we call it, the Gaza Strip. I won't go there. Anyway. But anyway, same territory, same issues, same people, actually. You know, if you look at the conflict that's going on in Gaza right now, you have longtime residents of that area, they're descendants of the Philistines. So anyway, ancient history is modern history if you don't learn from it. So after this, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. Anybody ever heard of Delilah? Okay. Her name means flirtatious. Okay. We do not know if she was Philistine or not. The territory they're talking about is not Philistine territory, but the Philistines dominate the Israel territory. So, they have access to Delilah. And now with Samson's first wife, who was Philistine, when things didn't work out so well for their plans, and Samson was visiting all kinds of destruction on the Philistines, they burned her and her father. Okay, things are a little different. The deal is a little different with Delilah. So I'm thinking maybe she wasn't a Philistine. After this, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came to her and said, coax him and find out what makes his strength so great and how we may overpower him, so that we may bind him in order to subdue him. And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Well, I don't know how many of them there were, but that's a lot of money back then, even if it was from one guy. Okay. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me what makes your strength so great and how you could be bound so that one could subdue you. Samson said to her, ha ha, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that are not dried out, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else. Then the lords of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings that had not dried out, and she bound him with them, while men were lying in wait in the inner chamber. She said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped the bowstrings as a strand of fiber snaps when it touches the fire, so the secret of his strength was not known. This is a hint that maybe he shouldn't trust Delilah. I'm just saying, Men are sometimes stupid. Really, really stupid.
It really makes you wonder why our God would choose such
an idiot.
Samson.
Sometimes, Sometimes you need stupid people to carry out sophisticated plans. Okay? Peggy and I were watching a thing on the CIA, and after the bombing, they appointed a CIA station chief named Bill Buckley to head up the retaliation for the bombing of the embassy and the Marine barracks in Lebanon. This was under Reagan, and Bill Buckley had this sinister plan that he was going to carry out against the terrorists. Bill Buckley was having an affair with a Lebanese woman who just happened to be a spy, and they ended up kidnapping him right when the plan was going to go into effect. And then they tortured him on video and sent it to the State Department and the CIA. And I don't know that Bill Buckley ever really survived that. But that's called the Galloping Dum-Dums, you know?
The Galloping Dum-Dum?
Yes, the Galloping Dum-Dums, yes. And just because you're in intelligence doesn't mean that you're immune to the Galloping Dum-Dums. That happens, you know? But whatever they did to Bill Buckley, as far as I'm concerned, he pretty well deserved it. That was really stupid. Oh, listen, I come from a very harsh environment, okay? And I know I constantly had to be on my toes. You live in a foreign country, and I wasn't undercover. I was wearing uniform, so I had my intelligence brass on me. That somebody would try to compromise me if they had an opportunity. So I just, you always have to be aware, and hooking up with some foreign woman in a country where you're operating as an intelligence officer is probably not wise, okay? It wasn't for Bill, and it wasn't for the CIA, and the whole plan fell apart because of it. Thank you, Bill Buckley. Okay, then Delilah said to Samson, "You have mocked me and told me lies." Boo-hoo. "Please tell me how you could be bound." This, when you consider pillow talk, that's not usually, unless they're into some kind of deviant thing. Anyway, if they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else. So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." The man lying in wait in an inner chamber, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like a thread. Well, dang, Anyway, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you could be bound." He said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and make it tight with a pin, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else." Now, this is a lie, okay? But it harkens back to, remember that general that was killed by the woman and she stuck a tent pin through his head? Okay, this is kind of a reminiscent thing. Anyway, but just pin my hair, braid it, pin my hair, and I'll just become weak. All right. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his head and wove them into a web and made them tight with a pin. Then she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." It's like he hasn't heard this before. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled away the pin, the loom, and the web. Then she said to him, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me?"
Optimum.
No, we're not going to do that. There we go. That is not optimum. Okay. "You have mocked me 3 times now and have not told me what makes your strength so great." 3 is always a big deal, okay? 3 always says complete kind of thing. So whatever was going on, there are 3 strikes and you're out in the Bible. So "You have mocked me 3 times now and not told me what makes your strength so great." Finally, after she nagged him with her words day after day and pestered him, he was tired to death. Do not hook up with a woman who will tire you to death, which is literally what she did. Okay? So he told her the whole secret, you stupid, anyway, and said to her, a razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. Now understand, part of the deal for Samson was that he was under a Nazarite vow. Nazarites were not supposed to cut their hair. Okay? And I don't know how he figured out the relationship between his hair and his strength, except that he was under this vow. And that's probably it, because, you know, how would he know if he hadn't cut his hair before and gotten weak? So, I don't know. Anyway, I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, then my strength would leave me. I would become weak and be like anyone else. Then Delilah realized that he had told her his whole secret. She sent and called the lords of the Philistines, saying, this time come up, for he has told his whole secret to me. Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought the money in their hands. Okay. She let him fall asleep on her lap, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. I don't think that he just fell asleep. I think this guy was passed out drunk. Okay? And he began to weaken, and his strength left him. Then she said to the Philistines, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. Same line. When he awoke from his sleep, he thought, I will go out as at other times and shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. So, did he know? I mean, you would wake up and you got hair all around you and, you know, you're bald. And you would think, yeah, you would think he would notice something like that right away. He might have thought that he was lying to her again, you know. Anyway, but he did not know the Lord had left him. So the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes. They brought him down to Gaza and bound him with bronze shackles. And he ground at the mill in the prison. All right. I've seen pictures of blind Samson in the prison, you know, at a turnstile. No. This is a Philistine humiliation. Okay? Grinding with a mill is a woman's job. And there's a place that we read in the Pentateuch where if a woman is captured in war and becomes a slave, if you wanted to marry that slave, she had to shave her head, and before that could take place. I don't know what the significance was, but anyway, that's in the Pentateuch if you wanted to marry one of your slaves. Also, when the Babylonian captivity took place, one of the things that they did to humiliate all of their captive men was they shaved their heads, their beards, and their feet. I don't know. I guess it was a force. I guess it was a force of habit. So anyway, that's what they did to him. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now, you would think that the Philistines might pay attention to a little thing like that. Okay? And this is one way of mocking the Philistines, is to show that they stupidly let his hair grow again. Okay? But anyway, they were humiliating Samson as much as possible, but they weren't done yet. Okay? Now the lords of the Philistines gathered to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon and to rejoice, for they said, our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hand. When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God has given our enemy into our hand, the ravager of our country, who has killed many of us. And when their hearts were merry, they said, call Samson and let him entertain us. All right. Now, before we go on, I want to explain to you about the Philistine god, Dagon. Okay? The Philistines were an Aegean people. They actually were like Greek. And they had sailed into this country, and they had taken over Gaza, and that was Philistine territory. But their god, Dagon, was a merman. and I have a picture of Dagon here. Okay, let's see. That's Dagon. Okay, and the archaeologists have discovered some ancient Hebrew comments about the Philistine god Dagon, who under other cultures became Poseidon or Neptune, okay? But there was something fishy about this guy. Some of the things they said about him were he sleeps with the fishes, he's totally kelpless, he's got crabs, he's got a voice like a siren. Is this the face that sank 1,000 ships? He works for scale. He needs to go to fin-ishing school. He'll go for a swirl with anyone. He's got no legs. He's a paddle tail. He looks like something the tide dragged in. He's insane. Yeah, He smells like 3-day sushi. He's just a fluke. He's hard of hearing. He's neither here nor there. He smokes seaweed. He uses salty language. He's slime. He rolls with the tide. Okay. He's too slick. He's hooked. He keeps baiting me. He couldn't get into the coral group. He's an enemy. Let's see. He shells out. He's old school. He's a cold fish. He flip-flops. He's like a fish out of water. He's a false cod. So, anyway. Just some ancient Hebrew insults about the god Dagon. So just thought I'd share that with you. All right. So I'll just pass that around. Anybody wants
Some more funny, Dennis.
There you go.
Before we started naming all that stuff.
Yeah.
You said there's something fishy about that.
There was something fishy about that guy. It's true. It's true. Well, it was only half true. But anyway. All right, so they're going to have Samson come out and entertain them. Okay? Samson is not a comedian, so let's see what happens. And when their hearts were merry, they said, call him, and he let Samson entertain us. So they called Samson out of the prison, and he performed for them. They made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the attendant who held him by the hand, let me feel the pillars on which the house rests so that I may lean against them. So he's feigning that he's really weak. He's acting like he can't stand on his own. He's got to lean against the pillars, okay? That puts him near the pillars. Okay. And Samson said to the attendant, okay, I got that. Now the house was full of men and women. All the lords of the Philistines were there, of course. And on the roof, there were about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson performed. Now that's a lot of people to put on the roof, okay? What are you doing with 3,000 people on the roof of a temple? You know, I think you would more like want a stadium or something for that many people. But anyway, the Old Testament is known for great exaggerations. What they are saying is there are a lot of people on the roof. That's really what 3,000 means. There was a lot of people on the roof. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, Lord God, remember me and strengthen me only this once, God, so that with this one act of revenge, I may pay back the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Now understand, he's not paying back the Philistine for dominating his people. Everything about Samson is everything about Samson. Okay? He's a total narcissist. There isn't anything, he has no compassion for his own people. And all he's interested in is getting the Philistines back for messing with him. But they don't care if he doesn't care if they mess with anybody else. Okay. And Samson grasped the 2 middle pillars on which the house rested, and he leaned his weight against them, his right hand on the one and his left hand on the other. Then Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. He strained with all his might, and the house fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. So those he killed at his death were more than those he had killed during his life. Then his kindred and all his family came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the tomb of his father Manoah. He judged Israel 20 years.
I'm surprised God blessed him to be able to take revenge.
I think God was more interested in killing Philistines than he was in helping Samson.
Right, and God uses people.
God uses people.
And he absolutely used Samson.
Yeah, he did. He did. Now, a modern notation on this, archaeology in Israel is politically very controversial. There are places in Israel where if you dig in one place to verify your history, other people who do not like that history don't want you to dig there. So, for instance, Palestinians don't want Israelites to dig in the temple. They try to block any kind of archaeological discovery in the temple. And there are huge sections under the temple that have not been excavated. There was an excavation that was done by Palestinians, and what they did was they dug out a section under the old Temple Mount, and they took everything out of there and just put it in a dump. And so now Israeli archaeologists are going through the dump site, and they're picking out all the artifacts that just got dumped there. And that's not the best organized dig site, but they are picking out things and they're able to sort them. And the more they go through it, the more there's a verification that that really was a Hebrew temple. Okay? But there are whole sections under the temple that if they wanted to dig it out, you'd see another intifada going on. At the same time, the Israelites today, Israelis, are not real thrilled about verifying very much about Palestinian heritage. And so it's only been recently that they have been able to dig out and discover the Philistine temple to Dagon. And so now that has been excavated, and it's interesting because some of it seems to verify something of this story. But there really was a temple to Dagon, and of course there was. It's a bit more northern than I would have expected, but it's there, and they know what it is, and they know that it dates from the late Bronze Age, and it was Philistine. So, anyway,
This is a strange story.
it is.
It goes, to me, it kind of goes against God and what He had done. I mean, if He wanted someone to do His work, He normally gave them power, strength, wisdom to do that.
Yes.
And this guy was a total idiot.
He was a total idiot, but he did recognize that whatever powers he had were from God. There was that.
He never, in this story, he never asked God for strength, for wisdom, for guidance.
He asked him for strength.
Well, everything's he does everything on his own.
He would have been better off asking for wisdom.
A lot of it.
But we
Okay.
see this throughout the Bible. We see men that are in positions and they act on their own without asking God.
That's right.
So he's not the first or the only one that has acted on his own will
Yes.
as to what he's going to do. But in my mind, you look at the big picture. God knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And he used him because this was the way to defeat the Philistines.
The book of Judges is just rampant with all this kind of characterization of people who act independently and claim God's work as an afterthought. Okay?
But isn't that God working through them through that whole process?
God's ahead of all of us.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's not like we're going to outsmart him or we're going to ignore him and get away with it. But there is one of the things that you want to look for in the book of Judges. The reason why Judges is so informative is that Judges is a book of progression. You go from judges who were outstanding to judges that are totally corrupt. And then the story that comes after Samson is the worst story in the whole Bible. So, I mean, really, the next time we get into this, no kids, okay? Because it's rough. But you see at the beginning of Judges, a judge like Deborah, who epitomizes what women are capable of if they're allowed to exercise their capacity, okay? But as you go through the book of Judges, you're seeing the role of women diminish over and over and over again. And the society, at the same time that the role of women are being diminished, you see that society is going to hell in a handbasket. Okay? One of the things that I think is characteristic of tribal societies, which Judges is all about, is that the more tribal they become, the lower the status of women in that society. They are not even considered people, they are considered property. So the more tribal you get, the lower the status of women in those societies. That's one of the reasons why I really hate the movements that have been going on over the last 20 years to try and make us more tribal. They've tried, there has been a real effort to divide people within our culture based on race, sex, and all of that. And we're seeing in our own society a diminishing of women, where they're no longer women, they are birthing people, or that men can become them if they really want to, or, the uniqueness of women has been really attacked in some of the cultural stuff that's going on now. And what this is it's a tribal movement. Anytime you have some movement that tries to fracture your society into racial groups, ethnic groups, sexual groups, you're going more and more tribal. And the more you can get them to be tribal, just like in the book of Judges, the more tribes will fight each other and work against each other. And if you are a foreign entity and you really don't like a country and you really want to weaken that country so that you can take advantage of it or make them look the other way when you do something nefarious, you do things to make that society more tribal. Because then they will not come at you with a unified response. And I have to tell you that is specifically and totally announced by the Chinese Communist Party. That's what they are trying to do. And a lot of the efforts that we see going on in our own country are happening because of Iranian and Chinese influence in our society. They're trying to make us more tribal. And they're succeeding. So I think there's a great deal of pushback now, and I'm glad to see it. And we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And this is the worst thing that can happen to the Chinese or the Iranians, is that we begin to have a certain amount of national pride, and that it crosses all the lines that they're trying to establish within our culture. Okay, but just be aware that this is a technique over and over and over again that is used to destroy the people of God. They're trying to break off Christians from Muslims, from Jews, they're trying to just emphasize those things that divide us rather than those things that unite us. And when that happens, the first victims, the first part of the society to go and be diminished are women. And that's what's going on today. I see men playing in women's sports. The whole uniqueness is being invaded and diminished. And that's just it. Where did that come from? It's got to be stupid, and calling men birthing people. I mean, I'm sorry, you can have that uniqueness. I'm not interested in usurping that thing, but there's a lack of appreciation for women, and there's a diminishing, and we have to watch out, because the book of Judges tells us, and that last story in Judges more than anything else, that when you go tribal, half of your society is going to get diminished. Okay, well, we are there. So The next chapter, 17, is probably the most horrible story in the Bible, and a lot of people wonder why it even got canonized, but it's in there, and if you really want to see a society that's messed up, then just read the whole book of Judges, okay? Well, God bless you, and
We're not meeting next week.
we are not meeting next week, okay? Of course, we're having a brunch here at the church, and when they do that, they usurp my classroom space. Did they ask? Yeah, they did. But anyway, because I like to eat too. So a couple of weeks, okay? Couple of weeks. Eat well. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and God bless you all. And we're going to have a great New Year, but we're going to start off awful with the end of the book of Judges.